It all comes down to the battleground states in the American presidential election. And one of our own at the Toronto Sun has been touring them. Hi, I'm Brian Lilley, political columnist for the Toronto Sun. Joining me today, Brad Hunter, our national crime correspondent, but also someone with a keen eye for politics who just went through several battleground areas. Brad, welcome.
Brian, good to see you.
The last I looked, I think it was Real Clear Politics. Their polling division had Trump ahead by 1 in a poll of several battleground states. Now, I think there's about 11 of them. You didn't go to all 11, but let's talk about where you did go. You started out in Western New York State, Jamestown, New York, a couple hours south of Buffalo, right near the great skiing village of Ellicottville. But it's most famous for I Love Lucy. Lucille Ball is from there.
That's right. The Desi and Lucy Museum is one of the must stops in Jamestown.
What did you find out about politics, though? I mean, Western New York is one of the areas of the state that, you think New York and you just think New York City, and that's always going to go Democrat. This is an area that, will swing back and forth between Democrat and Republican. Are they pretty much divided right now in that area?
It seems to be that way. Jamestown itself and the county it's in, which is on the Pennsylvania border, typically goes Republican. And, as one person said to me, that a huge part of the state is Republican, but that's all washed out by the huge size of New York City, which goes Democratic. The people I talk to there generally and across aren't really particularly pleased with either candidate. Mostly, I think in Jamestown, people will toe the Republican line and keep going that direction. The big issues that I got everywhere, the two main things were, of course, illegal immigration and the economy. Those were the persistent themes, no matter what watering hole I was resting my hat in.
So you're right. Jamestown is in New York State. So however they vote, the whole state is going to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz when it comes to the Electoral College. It doesn't really matter there, but just down the road in Erie, Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania is a swing state. Currently, Kamala Harris ahead by, last I checked, less than a percentage point. And here's the kicker. Back in 2016, Hillary Clinton was ahead by several points in Pennsylvania, and she lost it to Donald Trump. This is why Democrats are so nervous, because even if polls show, she's ahead by a little on election day, if she's not ahead by a lot, she's losing Pennsylvania. And if she loses Pennsylvania, Trump wins the whole election. So what were you hearing in Erie?
What I was hearing in Erie is that while, Erie, the whole thing, the whole shebang, the U.S. election could all come down to Erie because it's the most purple of a purple state. There's less swing states than there used to be, according to one of my old colleagues at the New York Post, Greg Birnbaum, the former political editor. And so Pennsylvania is absolutely crucial. There is no way to the White House, pretty much, without it. In Erie, people were, it was a lot again. The illegal immigration, the economy, on disdain for Trump, disdain for Harris, disdain for both.
So you were talking to, and you wrote about this in your column, you're talking to a couple of people, you talked to folks in both sides at this one bar, but you talked to a guy who was a banker and his buddies there, and he used to be a local Democrat operative. Like he helped run campaigns for the party. He's backing Trump. Why a switch like that? It's one thing for a swing voter to switch, but someone that used to work for the other party switching, there's got to be a reason.
Yeah, I think there's deep animosity among some Democratic operatives with Kamala Harris, that they don't see the Democratic Party as this great left-wing crusade that we've seen in much of urban America. And they don't want that. He left. He wasn't going to vote for anybody, and then he decided that he was going to click the box for Donald Trump. There's great dissatisfaction among Democrats with Kamala Harris, particularly in blue collar places that are more conservative. Now they may be heavily unionized places, but they're also very practical sort of.
They're not into the culture war stuff that
no,
a lot of the Democrat establishment has been pushing.
Yeah, that's a meal that they don't want to eat, and they feel somewhat left behind, as a huge swath of the Rust Belt has. And one of the things that come to the fore on all this is that people say that they were better off financially under Trump, right? And it's like the old Bill Clinton thing. It's the economy, stupid, and they just believe they're better off under Trump. I mean, they may be well aware of Trump's shortcomings, but a fatter wallet takes care of all sorts of other problems.
It's Canadians will often ask me, how can Americans vote for Trump? And I've said, look, it's a binary choice in the United States. You've got the blue team or the red team. There's no multi-party system, not of any real sort in the United States. And so if you don't like the policies of one, you're going to vote for the other. And as you said, the economics of all of it is a lot. You went to Youngstown, Ohio. Now, I remember when Ohio was a battleground state. I was broadcasting the 2012 election between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. And towards the end of the night, I think I went to 2:30 or 3 in the morning Eastern, still broadcasting because Ohio kept flipping. It's not, in the last few elections, been a swing state. It was for George W. Bush and Al Gore, with Bush and Kerry, and in Obama's time. Now it's become pretty much a red state. You were in Youngstown. I believe that's Dave Chappelle's stomping grounds. What were you hearing?
In Youngstown, I mean, that was what kept coming up, because I mean, Youngstown is a former steel town that, if you want to put a picture of the Rust Belt in a dictionary, it would be Youngstown. And it had the hell kicked out of it over the last 40 years with the closing of steel mills and things like that. But what I was finding in Youngstown, again, came down to money. There's the usual loopy things and whatnot, but it did all come down to dollars and cents, that they just felt they were better off, that the affordability, and a lot of things. I mean, the one guy I talked to in Youngstown, he has relatives in the Toronto area, and he said that they come down now and they're shocked at the prices. I mean, they're used to ridiculous prices in Canada, but then they think they're going to get a break in Youngstown or the U.S. and the prices.
You're not getting that anymore.
No, exactly.
You spoke to one woman in you spoke to some real characters, but there was one woman who was telling you she's backing Harris, but couldn't remember her name. Tell us about that character.
Well, her first gambit, she was with her boyfriend, and their first gambit was that they were in a throuple with another couple, or with another woman. And as it turns out, she was a Canadian woman from Ottawa who was in their throuple, and that they're both fabulous at sex. And then they started making out, but she likes Harris, and she thinks pedophiles should be executed, and that prisons should be more cognizant of people who are neurodivergent.
Interesting people that you meet on your travels. It's still shocking me. You ended your tour in Michigan, and it's still shocking to me that Michigan is a swing state. This is the type of place that if Democrats were doing their job properly, they would have
be
wrapped
game,
up.
set, and match. No, it
Yeah,
should be game, set, and match, right? And it's, I think, again, as you say, the culture wars that they get sucked into them. I mean, a friend of mine who's a longtime NDP member here in Canada, cringes every time they go down the identity politics here in Canada, because they end up losing a ton of votes for people who, might naturally vote for them. And that's the thing. They just don't want to, hear it. They don't.
and that's what you think is happening in what were traditionally blue states like Michigan. You've got Trump with an economic message, and they see the Democrats as not as good on the economy and pushing these divisive culture war issues.
Well, exactly. And there was a story, I guess, about 6-8 months ago, that it was about how the United Auto Workers, which is the largest, union in Michigan, that they had been largely, hijacked to an extent by a lot of ideologues who've never spent a day on the line. And so the leadership of the UAW is pushing Kamala Harris. The membership, now they've got a splinter group called Auto Workers for Trump. And, this is a real problem for the Democrats.
We saw that play out with the Teamsters Union. The poll of members said overwhelmingly Trump, and yet, a good chunk of the leadership want Harris. And in the end, the union ended up saying, we're not going to endorse anyone, which is pretty much, for a union like the Teamsters, a de facto endorsement of the Democrats.
Well, yeah.
Or sorry, a de facto endorsement of the Republicans.
Well, that's right? Because, I mean, if the economy's better, more members are working and things like that. And, a lot of unions like the UAW have been captured by, to an extent, by a somewhat ideological set that don't have necessarily their members' interests at heart. I'm in CUPE.
All right, Brad. It was fascinating reading your travels down there. I'll be going to just one swing state in a couple of weeks, going down to Arizona to check that out and see what's happening there. I think that one's leaning to Trump, but it's too close to call, like so many of them, which is why this race is fascinating. Thanks so much.
Terrific. Thanks, Brian.
All right. Let us know what you think of the American presidential race, where it's going, how it's going. Drop a comment down below. Share this on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.